And welcome to Conservatives Talk.
And for starters, Biden says a lot. And then he says nothing at all.
And the sham lame duck of a committee, the January 6th committee, subpoenas President Trump.
And Canada is beating us in something. And, you know, it's gun bans.
And the Georgia midterm early voting numbers continue to soar.
And Buck says I might have been on to something when it comes to the apocalypse.
Brains.
We eat brains.
And welcome to Conservatives Talk. My name's Justin.
And this is Jamie.
And as always, we like to make sure to remind all of our viewers that they're hitting the like button and the share button on any of the content that we produce and put out on any of the platforms. And while you're doing that, also make sure you're hitting the subscribe button. That way you'll never miss a single episode of any of our content. You will always be able to stay informed, and you will never miss a single moment of Jamie's smiling face, nor that infectious roaring laughter of his. Also, go to conservativestalk.org and hit the sponsor tab in the upper right-hand corner or the lower right-hand corner and help us out with what you're able to, because every little bit goes an incredibly long way to helping Jamie and I to continue to produce this content and distribute it to you and throughout the social media universe, so we can eventually, one of these days, take over the world. So, Jamie, would you like to jump into your first reminder?
First reminder is don't forget to boycott hometown headlines. We're almost there, guys. It's almost gone.
Yes. And could not come any sooner.
I know it, right?
Yes. I mean,
one day he will be a
distant memory,
irrelevant columnist.
Well, he kind of already is.
Yeah, but not even there. Like,
it's like smoke in the wind.
Smoke, dust in the wind.
It's like a lot of his content. It was there before, and now it's gone.
Now it's gone.
It's because if you happen to actually go and look for some of his older columns and posts,
gone.
They're gone.
Gone.
I found that interesting.
Well, I think people are starting to wake up.
Well, hopefully so.
Yeah, we'll see.
And you want to do your favorite part?
Yes. 12 days until we cancel Stacey Abrams and the rest of the Democratic ticket.
Oh man, I'm excited.
I am too. Can't wait till we do the little tombstone thing, you know.
Mm-hmm. That's going to be
I wonder what we're going to play.
We'll have to play. Well, I don't want to play taps because they don't deserve that.
Yeah, no. We'll think of something.
No. Bye, bye, bye.
That sounds like a good one.
Oh yeah, that's the one we're going to.
That's the one we'll do.
That one.
We'll in sync.
We'll see about getting the rights to that one too.
Yeah.
And as always, we want to say a quick thank you to our affiliates, and our first one being our national affiliate. It's Net News Network. So Net News Network is a compilation of podcast and I guess broadcast platforms, kind of like Jamie's and I. And what they do is they broadcast or they record these, upload them to this platform, and Net News Network makes it available to the nation at whole. It's a great little resource for any sort of localized news, anything along that line. Everything that you hear on there is trustworthy and credible. So make sure you're checking out netnewsnetwork.net and seeing what all they have to offer with it. And we want to say another quick thank you to Veterans for America First. So Veterans for America First is a political grassroots organization that is dedicated to fighting tooth and nail to make sure that America remains the greatest nation in the world by really getting behind the America First principles. And they do that through their media wing, and that's Vet Voice. So Vet Voice is a media channel that only has content producers that really promote the America First policy. And they do that by going on the front battle lines and fighting to make sure that we do remain the greatest nation in the world. So with that, Jamie, let's let's jump right into our first topic. And that's Biden says quite a bit, and then nothing at all.
Yeah.
So we have a clip for this, and we want to play this clip for you real fast, and then discuss it a little bit.
Senate, a long time, 1973 to 2008. You know that institution inside and out better than anybody probably who's ever served. And that time you served with many Republicans.
Many conservative Republicans.
Right, super conservative Republicans. My question to you, though, Mr. President, is can our democracy survive when the Republican Party it only cares about power?
Well, look, I think that if we allow the Republican Party to continue to metastasize into what a minority of the party as a whole is, I think one of the reasons there's not more mainstream conservative Republicans running out there is because they are so concerned about not only their physical well-being, but also the notion that how can they win when a minority of Republicans are showing up to vote and they're really hard edged.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot to unpack just in that 1 minute segment there.
All the way through, right? Starting with the reporter, right?
Yes.
Going back to his statement about how does democracy continue? I'm sorry, but we are fighting to bring back democracy to the United States based upon the socialist bureaucracy.
Oh, wow.
I know.
Wait a second.
That the Democrat Party is bringing.
Can you say that one more time?
Socialist bureaucracy.
Oh my gosh.
There's a place for bureaucracy, but what they're doing is they're empowering the executive branch to continue to enforce policies that they cannot get passed through Congress.
So I do have to I got to stop you there for a moment. If y'all did not hear it, my watch just went off and it just signaled that my heart rate increased. That's where we are. And you're right about that. He made it seem as if the Republicans or even just conservatives in general, or anybody that would fall under the Republican umbrella, are the reason why democracy in their mindset is failing. But the thing about it is that by diversifying and spreading out and creating a larger tent party like we've done, we're increasing democracy.
Yep. They live in a world that I don't think the rest of the American people or anybody else even knew existed.
You mean
the illusion?
They live in a world that reality doesn't recognize exists.
Correct. It's its own multiverse over there. I don't understand.
I like that phrase, the multiverse.
I really don't get where they think that they are helping democracy in any shape, form, or fashion by the policies that they are putting out there.
Well, so I think that in their minds that they are, but they are trying to help democracy as opposed to a democratic republic. By what I mean by that is they're trying to have everyone come in and vote. They're trying to have these illegal immigrants that are invading our country come in and be able to vote in these deals. They're trying to make it to where everyone who has a foot on American soil can vote in our elections and have an influence on our government, which quite frankly is not only unconstitutional, but it's unconscionable.
Well, it didn't work in ancient Athens when the theory was created. So I don't understand why they believe that it would work now.
Rome.
It didn't work in Rome either, which is why Rome became in as a representative republic as well. Mm-hmm. And then that's what made the United States great, was because of the fact that it took the best parts of both of those kind of forms of government and merged into what became the greatest form of government that history's ever known.
Seen. Yes, absolutely. Yeah, and it's the longest serving as well.
Yep.
So another thing that really jumped out at me and that really stuck into my mind was when, or it was one word that Biden used there, and that was metastasize. When you're talking about metastasizing, you're talking about cancer. You're talking about a disease that takes over a body, destroys it by a growth, and kills the host, essentially. It's almost a form of cellular parasite, in a sense, by something that comes into a body, takes it over, grows exponentially, and then kills the host.
See,
and he's saying that Republicans are that in democracy.
Yeah. He's trying to say that us getting back to
American first principles or just America being the greatest
is a virus.
Mm-hmm.
Being like holding strong values in a nation as a whole and not thinking that we need to put the world before we put ourselves first, that is a virus, which is a problem.
Oh, without a doubt.
You know, and then the other thing that stood out to me too is when he said, I served with many Republicans, conservative Republicans. I didn't know.
Very conservative Republicans.
I didn't know that there were non-conservative Republicans.
I'm not even gonna touch that. But it's too close to the election.
Conservatism has, that's part of it. Whether you're
we've got some out there.
I don't believe so. I really don't.
And in my mindset, there are some Republicans that are out there.
There are some Republicans who are not as conservative as others. There are some Republicans who, are more
weak-kneed, cowardly, despair,
more moderate. But that doesn't change their principles. That doesn't change what their value system is. It doesn't.
Well, I guess in the macro level, maybe not as much so, but more in the macro level.
It just depends on, look, here's the thing. Not everybody's hard right, nor will they ever be.
Well, I understand that, but you do have a lot that are out there that are for giving a lot of these or expanding government social programs, going to war at the drop of a hat. A lot of these things, a lot of these principles that frankly are again, or that would diminish the America First principle.
Well, that are not far right ideals, but they are still conservatism. They're still based in the belief of what it means to be a conservative Republican. It's not whatever the heck the left's doing.
Did they teach you that this past weekend?
You mean at moderate school?
Mm-hmm.
No.
in your political sorority meeting?
Hey, look.
That's never going to be lived down, right?
I think it's the greatest thing in the world. I think, look, because
for those who are listening, Jamie says it's the greatest thing in the world.
It is, because there is. You'll see. There is a. At some point, you all will realize.
Okay.
You all will realize that you're not going to be able to get anything done unless you find some common ground. Now,
we do have common ground.
Hold true to your principles, like the rest of us do, because that's what it means to be a conservative.
There's a lot to unpack with that one, but we're already unpacking something else. So the real thing that really got me and what was said there in that one clip was that Joe Biden didn't think that there were as many quote unquote mainstream Republicans that were willing to run for offices because they feared physical harm. That in of itself tells me everything about this that I need to know, because it was Biden himself that came out and went with the whole the pandemic of the unvaccinated, that it was the MAGA movement that was destroying democracy, and the Democrat Party coming out with the deplorable statements, that ultimately led to the rise against or the rise in bodily harm against conservatives. I mean, when Hillary Clinton came out and made that statement, we saw a massive spike in that. When Joe Biden came out and made his statement about how quote unquote MAGA was a threat to democracy, we started seeing attacks against some of these Republican or conservative activists across the entire country. So it's not us that are coming out and really attacking people in bodily harm. It's the Democrats. I mean, it was a Democrat, Bernie Sanders, massive supporter that went out onto the softball field and shot a bunch of congressmen.
Well, and think about the fact that, and you know, I heard a different hypothesis, but think about the fact of the Dobbs case and the leak that came along with that. Yeah. You know, though there are different theories out there of why that leak occurred, the more predominant one is the fact that it was leaked because you had a disgruntled clerk or a disgruntled staff member of a justice who wanted to kind of pressure a change or a swing in the votes to reverse what decision was getting ready to come out.
Well, the thing about that is clerk that is there will not and cannot do anything without a justice wink and a nod.
Not necessarily true.
No, that's
not necessarily true. Not with the leak. That's not necessarily true. But
oh yeah, because justices have all of that stuff on lockdown.
Not necessarily true.
Okay.
But we'll, you know.
Tell me I don't. Okay. Tell me I don't know how the Supreme Court. Okay.
Hey, look, that's something that we can, you know, maybe talk about offline. But so we're clear that, you know, that's a likelihood of potentially what, you know,
that's what happened. That's what happened. It was leaked it was leaked by someone within the Supreme Court. 99.99% was a clerk. Absolutely.
Yes. Those are potential things of what have happened. But anyway, my whole point in this is to say this is that we have reached a time as to where they're fear-mongering, and you've seen Joe Biden and the left do this continually, to where he will say statements like this, that the Republicans are scared to run, that the Democrats are protecting democracy from, you know, this awful MAGA first, American first policy. And the reality is that they are reaching at straws to try to scare people into believing what their tactics are.
You mean kind of like what they did with the pandemic?
Oh, all of it. I mean, again, I swear to God, if anybody hasn't gone back and watched House of Cards, like we're in season 5 right now, and he's pulling the same, like this is like they told us, it's almost like foreshadowing, right? You go back through the story and you can go back and look and see Joe and Dr. Biden doing the same tactics that Frank and Claire did when it came to fear mongering, going to war. You know, how do they handle certain things? They go into grave detail about a lot of the things that we're living now. Very interesting.
You're not wrong. You're definitely not wrong. We are living in a time of House of Cards.
Because a lot of
crazy as that is.
Yeah. I mean, because of a lot of it is, you know, a play on media, you know, and how that affects people at a subliminal level.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting to think that although Biden seems to think that we are, or that it is what he refers to now in his colloquial term as the mega MAGA, we are the problem because we are the ones that are going out and causing all of this harm. But it's not us that's causing all the harm. It's his party and his extremist wings of his party. It's not the people that are fighting to make sure that America stays great. It's the people who are fighting to turn America into a socialist country that you see in every example of how a country turns socialist, or communist or fascist, for instance. It's always that extremist wing on the far left side that does all of it.
Yep.
But yet he's blaming us for it. and there are 9 more, or so there's 90% more examples of these far left extremists that are causing the violence, as opposed to anything that any right wing extremist may be aligned with.
It's very interesting how we even got to this point to where they try to divide us based upon.
Well, they've been doing that for a long time.
Well, what I mean by that is when you start to see this very meticulous attack, right? He's trying to appeal, especially in this last clip, to the fact of that there is a problem or a fear inside of the Republican Party, when it's always been understood as Republican Party, like you will have these factions, right? And at times, it's time for a different part of the party to lead versus another, because it's just the way that the system works. And so, again, I've said this to you 100 times. Eventually, everybody becomes part of the establishment, and you all are going through your factionary leadership period right now in the MAGA movement, and the rest of the party is okay with this because of the fact that we realize that, hey, it's time for aggression. Those of us who are not a little aggressive, it's more passive. It's time for us to kind of let you all lead and teach us about confrontational politics, and so we can see the other side of the coin.
Long may we reign.
Yep. as another
long live MAGA.
No, you got it backwards. As another establishment member friend of mine likes to say is, some of us are like cockroaches.
Whoever this establishment member friend of yours is, you're right.
We just keep coming back.
Around, carry disease everywhere.
We just keep coming back. Eventually, you guys will be cockroaches too. In a good way, though, because
long may we reign. This is not Game of Thrones.
Hey, look, I remember
we've taken the seat.
Oh, okay. Yeah, sure. I remember when Ron Paul said that too. I remember the Tea Party movement.
Ron Paul never won.
I remember
Tea Party never won.
Mm-hmm. They're candidates.
We did.
Yeah.
Just saying. But so we saw Biden say a lot there. Now to the other part of this, where he says nothing at all.
I have not made that formal decision, but it's my intention. My intention to run again. And we have time to make that decision.
Dr. Biden is for it. Mr. President. Oh,
Dr. Biden thinks that my wife thinks that we're doing something very important.
Wow. Yeah. Let's come back to this.
What was that like? First, he falls asleep. I don't know if you caught that. And about
sleeps with his eyes.
We've all been there where we're like still halfway conscious, but like we're trying to keep our eyes open. They keep falling. I do it a lot while I'm driving.
For those of you who drive between Cherokee County and Floyd, keep that in mind.
Anyway. 411 used to be the best 20-minute nap you can get in.
Oh man! So when he was first asked the question, did you happen to notice how he did the whole little? He was nodding. Yeah, she's okay with it, and then he's like, "Oh, wait a second, that's not what she said last night." Dr. Biden. I mean, my wife. How do you? How do you announce your wife as Dr. Biden?
That's how you know she's like. That's how you know she. You know what I mean? There's a certain C word that refer to men that
you ain't cuckold.
I wasn't gonna say it on the air. I get in trouble for all the time, but yeah, that's how you know. You know what I mean? Like,
somebody's wearing the pants in that one.
Yep.
And you know she's just off camera and she's just glaring at him. I mean, I can feel the intensity. Just
well, notice I feel like that's what the reporter was saying was because he put his hand out to look to the side, Dr. Biden, right? And he says Dr. Biden because she's probably off camera behind him, and he's trying to she's correcting him, and the reporter's giving the signal of what is she saying?
Mm-hmm. And he's just saying, oh man, that one hurt me. Poor guy. Shame on them for doing this to him.
I know.
It's sincerely sad. They really have taken something or taken a mentally deficient man and strung him up like a marionette and are having him dance and parade in front of the public eye.
Yep.
Shame on you, Democrats. Shame on you. But with that in mind, we always like to remind everyone to make sure they're hitting the like button and the share button on any of the productions that we put out on any of the platforms. Make sure you're also hitting the subscribe button. That way you'll never miss a single moment of any of our content. And you'll always be able to see Jamie's smiling face and hear that infectious laughter. Also, make sure you're going to our website at conservativestalk.org and hitting that sponsor tab in the upper right-hand corner or the lower right-hand corner and helping us out what you're able, because it really helps for Jamie and I to continue to make our productions and continue to spread our word. So eventually, one of these days, we can take over the world. And with that in mind, let's talk about the sham lame duck January 6th committee that just subpoenaed President Trump.
Here we go. Here we are again with a TV spectacle.
Oh yeah.
That's it. Now they realize that viewership, no one watches it. No one cares as much as they want people to care about it. And now that a good bit of them aren't returning to office.
But yes, TV spectacle, exactly. That's exactly what it is. They have taken something that they hired a network producer to put together and to string out over several months, thinking that it was going to be a major influence and a major factor on the midterm elections. And you're right in that both of the Republican members that sit on this committee are lame duck members because they will not be returning to Congress after that.
So now they're trying to pull the punches, right? Mm-hmm. And they're trying.
Oh, they're not pulling it. They're trying not to pull the punches.
Well, what I mean by that is they're trying to pull the punches and make something like a nuke happen, right? But the reality is that just like everything before, no one's paying attention to them. No one cares what they have to say. They think this is a sham, and it's backfiring because they're so out of touch with the rest of the American people. And here's the thing about, how do I say this kindly? Here's the thing about a Liz Cheney. All right. When you realize that you're part of the party that's no longer leading, then you sit down and shut up.
So
I'm just being honest.
I would I get what you're saying with that, but to, I guess, make it more apparent for those who are watching this, he's not referring to, or at least in what I'm thinking he's not referring to, is when you're in the minority, you sit down and shut up. Because when you're in the minority in a congressional body, that's the time to really stand up and make a lot of noise. But when you are no longer a viable candidate for that seat, you just
what I'm talking about is not the difference between a Republican and a Democrat. What I'm talking about is inside of your own party. And we're not saying that, that we're outcasting Liz Cheney.
Okay? Oh, no, we are.
Well, y'all are. What I'm saying is she's still a Republican. Okay. What I mean is that
the state of Ohio didn't agree
that she needed to be the representative anymore.
And even cast her out of the state party.
What I'm saying is this, okay, is that, well, now that you get me off track of what I'm thinking, right? Because this is exactly what I mean, okay? You can't stand up there and go against the entire party, even just because you're mad that you're no longer in leadership. The party has spoken and has said that, hey, cool it down. or we're going to have to oust you because you're thinking more about yourself and your self-interest and your power than you are about the party as a whole. And that's what we're getting into. And that's the problem.
See, and I disagree with that statement as far as what that needs to be done, because I am 100% against standing up for your own party if you believe that that's what your constituents want you to do, because you were there as a representative
of your constituents,
represent your constituents there. But as we have found, when Liz Cheney started doing everything that she started doing, she was not listening to her constituents. She was not following their values.
Correct.
She was going against what the state of Wyoming wanted.
Which is what I am saying. Okay, but here's also what I'm saying. What I'm saying is as a leader, she misstepped, and it made it very apparent that she is only interested in doing these things for herself.
Oh yeah,
not for the party, not for anyone else.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where the problem is. Okay, when you realize that, you know what, you may not 100% align with the direction at the time that the party is going, it's time for you to take a step back. That doesn't mean take a step back in leadership, but still help. You see what I'm saying? She did not do any of those things because she was selfishly looking at her own interest and her own seat of power.
Mm-hmm. I get what you're saying there. She needed to focus on what she or what her constituents were wanting her to do, as opposed to what she wanted to do and what she felt like was her responsibility there, as opposed to actually representing the state that she had been elected to represent.
Correct. For too long, and here's what separates us from the Democrats. Okay. For too long, we had one of the millions of things, but
yeah,
we have had people who are only in there for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
The Democratic Party across the board, you have candidates who go up there and they're only in it for themselves.
Oh, yeah.
We put the greater good above anything else. And that is part of what it means to be an American and a Republican, is trying to make sure that, you know what, hey, I may have once been in leadership, but the direction that we're in right now may not allow it. Let me at least try to help the next leader or someone else inside of the party who's rising in power. Let me do what I can do that I feel comfortable with, because the greater good is the most important thing. What is the best interest of the people? What are we here to do? And that's lead the people. If the people are saying that this is what we are seeing as the problem, that's what we fight for.
Well, I would say with a more fine edge on that, not the people as a whole, but your constituents.
If you're a representative, yes.
It does not matter where you are as far as like leadership or anything along in that mindset. You're there as an elected representative of your people. If you're not following in with where your people are, or if you're not representing them in the way that they want, we see what happens.
You need to take a step back. If you choose not to take a step back on your own on your own free will,
the people will do it for you.
The people will remove you, because that is their right, and that is the purpose of having a republic, a democratic republic.
Well, it's not just their right; it's their obligation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but getting off of Liz Cheney and
back to the hypocrisy.
Yeah, Kissinger
or the whole thing.
Kissinger. Yeah, so they have subpoenaed the president and said that he must appear for testimony either in person or by video conference or telecommunication conference by no later than around or about November 14th. So I find it interesting that they scheduled it after the primary, for one, because this is clearly nothing more than a show to help out some of the people who are on this committee, who are running in some of these tight elections, that they would do this after the primary, because you would think that they'd want Trump to come out and say, no, I'm not coming out there. I'm not doing this. This is nothing more than just a sham or anything, which because it's on November 14th, you know that it is no longer an actual viable committee that's going to extend or actually do anything after this, because several of its members no longer going to be in office.
So, and Justin, it'll click in just a second.
You know, I love how you keep trying to talk down to me, but it doesn't work.
What are you talking about?
I'm talking about it'll click in just a second. You'll understand.
No, that's not what I'm talking about.
It's funny how y'all think that you're going to power. It's funny how you think that y'all are going to last. Y'all are going to be part of this station. I got your number. I got you.
Look,
I'm going to remember this.
Here's what I was saying.
This is going to be stored. This is going to be something we can look back on in
what I was
years
actually saying.
I told you so.
What I was actually saying was, when you look at the calendar for the next couple months, and it'll click because you plan events too. There's only 2 days between now and any potential runoff that would actually be viable days to host an event for a runoff, or to where people are going to be not with much to do, to where they would be actually able to watch something on primetime television. And that's the 13th and 14th of November. Everything else in between that time, you're either running into holiday season or anything of that nature. So start looking at 13th and 14th, because people will already know that, hey, based upon weekends and everything else, that's the only real viable weekend to try to do something politically in between the runoff.
If I'm not mistaken, I believe they're also in session too.
Mm-hmm. That's what I mean. So if you're getting if you're getting candidates out, you're getting people out, you're trying to have like this big blowout event, or have some people watching or things of that nature, that is the only weekend from now after the election until the beginning of January that you can try to grab everyone's attention.
Well, I mean, they've been trying that all summer, or the majority of this year so far, and it's failed every time. But
that's why they chose that day, though.
Well, there is that possibility. So the reason why they have issued the subpoena is because they say that they, based upon all the testimony that they've heard, which it was just a very one-sided testimonial deal, which is the first time that's ever been done in the history of any committee or anything along this line. They feel like they have enough evidence to subpoena a former president. Again, unprecedented. Nothing like this has ever happened before.
Unless you watch House of Cards. I just keep throwing that out there because, like, I feel like I'm still watching a movie, you know? like that's how awful they are making this, is that they basically have taken the script from a season and then they're replaying it.
You know what we need to do is look up and see if the ABC little production manager that
was
they
on Netflix with
was on or had anything to do with the making of that series.
We have to check that out. We have to look at that.
Would be a very interesting connection to make there.
Because I kid you not, the first thing that pops in my head when it talks about President Trump appearing in person for this subpoena, I see Frank, when he was sitting president, appearing before a panel put together when they subpoenaed him. Because even they say in the show, this is unprecedented that we have subpoenaed a president of the United States, and then he comes in and he gives it to him, and then next thing you know, that's enough that actually does exactly what this is. It gives him enough of a boost to where he is reelected as president.
Spoiler alert. But no, that's definitely something we're going to have to look into. And I haven't heard that connection being even brought up anywhere else. So if it does turn out to be like that, you heard it here first.
Yeah.
So
we'll have to take a look at that.
Yeah. That's a good one. So another part of that is Trump actually came out and said, you know, I'd love to do this. Whether or not he actually does it, whether or not his legal advisors and his counsel talk him out of it, from his part of it, I would love to do it. As a matter of fact, you know, that would give him the spotlight sitting there and just blasting every single one of them for every bit of what they've done. I mean, we all know that when you get into a position like that, you don't have to answer their questions. You don't have to follow their narrative. You can say what you want to. You can get across the points that you want to. I mean, it's a bad idea on their part.
Yeah, it's a committee hearing. There's no legal ramifications against this. They like, and what I mean by that is like they're not law enforcement. They're not the DOJ. It's just a committee.
Mm-hmm.
He can go sit up there and he can literally cuss them all out.
Well, although if he doesn't,
there's a certain level of respect.
Well, if he doesn't go through with it, they can do what they did to Steve Bannon and send it up to the full body to vote on a contempt of Congress, of which we just saw Steve Bannon received a sentence of 4 months in prison.
Yep.
Although that has been deferred pending an appeal from based upon that decision, and he doesn't actually have to turn himself in until after the date for that appeal date has come and gone if they don't decide to appeal it.
Yep. But
they can
from the basis of it is that you know what I mean?
Yes.
Like it's just a committee hearing. Like he can go up there, he can go before the committee. It's not like they can bring any charges. The DOJ, just like anything else, if they want to, they can take a look at it and see if there's any inconsistencies, but the likelihood of that happening is slim to none. This is just an opportunity for President Trump to come out here and tell these people the truth and tell them to shove it, and that this is just nothing more than a sham.
Mm-hmm. You know, something that just came to mind with what you were saying there. So imagine in 2025, we have control of the House and the Senate, and they have these investigatorial committees that Republicans have, and they subpoena President Biden to come in and talk about his business dealings with his son. But then when that happens, his legal counsel comes back and says, well, you can't make him testify because he is no longer mentally competent to testify.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That would be a brilliant legal strategy there.
You know, so I thought about too. What you saying that if they've already done the power of attorney documentation, right? He could have been unconscious this entire time, and between Jill and Hunter, they could have done all these deals.
Yeah. Well, then that would come back on the Democrats and failing to enact the 25th Amendment.
Mm-hmm. See where I'm going with that? Because if they've already filed, like if they already know that he has continued to slip, right? They, as the power of attorney, could have made all those legal ramifications, had him sign whatever, then they would have been playing puppet master. Son would have done all the deals.
I got where you're going with that. It's an interesting concept.
Which goes back to that first clip that we had. You know, she's probably standing in the background making sure. And then when he said, "Huh, Dr. Biden?" That's really telling to me, right? Because most times, if there's a situation where the president and the first lady are there, first lady's usually sitting there unless she is directing communication. Because the only people who sit in the background are the ones who are directing communication.
You're not wrong about that. Yeah, that would have been a much more powerful and impactful statement or a question to ask had she been sitting there.
Because then they would have asked her what she thought about him running again, instead of looking back at her when he said what she wanted.
Yeah, but then you had the reporter coming out, or you had the I don't want to give him the credentialing or the title of a reporter, because that's not what he was doing. You had I guess the moderator would be a good way of putting that. The moderator of this quote unquote interview looking off to the side and kind of looking at his wife off, because we know she was standing there. After the first media interview that he did, when she ripped everybody in that office for saying, "How could y'all have let it go on that long?" You know she's not going to let that happen without her being there again.
Correct. Which is why I go back to they already have done the power of attorney information.
You might have. That's a very likely statement. But as always, we'd like to remind our viewers to make sure they are hitting the like and the share button. It helps Jamie and I to be able to get higher into the news or to the social media news stream with that. Also, leaving us any comments, good or bad. We absolutely love those who come out and give us some criticisms or constructive criticisms. But it is what it is. Make sure you're also subscribing to any of our productions that you see on any of the platforms. That way you can stay up to date on any of the content that we produce and put out there. You'll never miss a single moment of that, and you'll always be able to see Jamie's smiling face and that incredibly infectious laughter. Also, make sure you're going to our website at conservativestalk.org and hitting that sponsor tab in the upper right-hand corner or the lower right-hand corner and helping us out with what you're able, because all of our sponsors are the reasons why we are able to continue to make our productions and put them out at the way that we are. And with more sponsors, we get the higher likelihood that Jamie and I will eventually be able to take over the world, which we all know would lead to rainbows, unicorns, and greatness across the country.
I know. Utopia.
Exactly.
True utopia.
I'll just have to keep Jamie under the thumb a little bit. We know how those moderates get. So let's talk about a little bit of what Canada is actually beating us at now, and that's they're beating us in the gun bans.
Yeah, so they now have stopped the sale of guns,
the sale, the transfer, and the importation of handguns.
Everything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I believe it was May of this year, they made the announcement that they were going to be banning the importation of handguns. And I can't really think of any handgun that is produced in Canada. And I'm pretty well versed on a lot of that. So because none of them are produced there, they can no longer import any of them from anywhere else around the world. So there's not going to be any more handguns that Canadians will be able to get that way. They also banned the sale and the transfer of them. So now anyone that doesn't already have one will never be able to get one. Kind of sounds a lot like what Biden's wanting to do with the AR-15s.
Yeah, but I mean, aren't we talking about a country who still has not yet actually got its freedom? You know what I mean? Like, I don't expect anything less.
They were given their sovereignty by their, I guess their parent country,
but like
they didn't earn it.
Well, given sovereignty, right? But yet they still are part of the whole British Empire, so that like they really don't have sovereignty. Do you see what I'm saying?
I see
like you know what I mean?
Yes.
Like you can say that's like me saying, okay, you know, I own this house, but it's in my parents' name. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you don't really own it. Like, you just live there rent free.
It's in your name, but it's also in your parents' name.
Yeah, like you know, like well, yeah, like you just live there rent free. It's not yours.
And we know how good old Great Britain is with firearms. So, but yeah, they have banned all sort of handguns from being able to be transferred to be sold. They've already done what they claim is an assault weapons ban. So there are no transfers or sales of those either.
As my mind rambles, the first thing that pops in my head is I wonder if this will cause the same thing that it did in their parent country. And that is like, so when England, right, when the UK completely banned guns or heavily restricted them, as they like to say, knife violence went up. And so people still did the same level of violence, but just with a knife versus a gun. I wonder if we start to see the same spike, right? Because history tells us that this is what's going to happen. More stabbings are going to occur versus, you know, or knife-related suicides versus gun-related suicides, because people are still going to do and perform the same acts, just with a more blunt force of weaponry.
Well, I guess if you're talking about a knife, you could say a more surgical platform.
Surgical.
You like what I did there?
I like what you did there.
But so one of the things kind of think of there. So France is another country that we can say has one of these widespread bans with this. Yet when they had that massacre that happened in the theater with ISIS, just because you ban firearms from a country does not mean that those firearms are no longer going to be there. It's just that you're harming the law-abiding citizens from being able to acquire those firearms for their own protections.
Yep.
So it's not actually going to lower the or lower these crime rates like they think it is. It's in all honesty, it's going to escalate them, because it's not the law-abiding citizens that are having these problems and these issues with firearms, are committing these crimes that are leading to these higher rates, or these high rates that they claim that they have with these firearms. It's those who are the criminals that are already going to do that. So a criminal is not going to abide by a law that says I can't have this sort of gun.
This goes back to something that we discussed beforehand when they created that little new code for debit cards. Okay. Criminals don't purchase guns the same way that everyday people do.
Mm-mm.
And there's only one reason that people have unmarked, unregistered guns to begin with. And that is because a lot of people are using them to commit crimes to begin with. So,
well, it's not the only reason why they do it, because
here, Jesus
I may or may
Christ,
not have
Justin. What I'm saying is that the methodology that they're going after, these ghost guns, right? You know what I mean? All these things that they keep saying of why they're putting the bans in, they're not being purchased the same way that everyday citizens are purchasing guns.
And you are correct about that.
So the way that they're restricting the purchase of guns, again, to reiterate your point, only hurts law-abiding citizens, because they're not going, like, they're smuggling them into Canada anyway. They're not buying it at the store. They're not buying it and then scratching off the serial number. Like, they came to Canada that way. This is dumb.
Yeah, and as we said earlier, it's only going to hurt the law-abiding citizens that would use these for self-protection and the protection of their homes and their families.
Yep.
That's the only thing it's going to do. So now you're going to have a statistically higher rate of gun crimes that are going to happen now, because these criminals that have these firearms know that no one else is going to be able to get them. So why not just go ahead and rob the new family on the block?
Yeah. That's it. I'm telling you, one of the best laws I ever saw was like in Kennesaw, Georgia. You own property there. You have to own a gun. Before you can even get the property, you got to have a gun in the house. I feel like that should be in every ordinance for every municipality across America,
and actually enforce it.
Yeah,
because unlike them in Kennesaw, it's not.
Well, how you gonna enforce that though? Like, you know what I mean?
Shoving
like
your gun
at the sale, you gonna have a sheriff at the sale of your house, or you know what I mean? Sit at the person's table, and be like, okay, we need to see where your bill of sale, where you got your gun.
Oh no, not that. Just we need to see it. You don't have to have a registration, serial numbers, anything. We just need to see it.
Yeah. Send a photo. Would a photo be good, or do you want
no? It's got to be in person. It's got to be on them. It's got to be on in their possession. Because at that point in time, you can't say, "Oh, well, they Googled it and then
screenshot and then like cropped it."
It's got to be in their hands. I mean, that I can see that. So, we do like to take a moment to remind all of our viewers to make sure they're hitting the like button and the share button on any of the content we produce on any of the platforms. And make sure you're also hitting the subscribe button. That way you can stay up to date with any of the content we produce. You'll never miss a single episode, and you'll always be able to hear Jamie's incredible laughter. Also, going to our website at conservativestalk.org and hitting the sponsor tab, because it is our sponsors that allow us to be able to continue to produce this content and spread our word, so Jamie and I can metastasize and take over the world. Use a little turn of phrase.
I like that.
You like that.
Yeah.
Jamie and I are going to metastasize to take over this country one of these days.
The cancer of the party.
Not even going to touch that. Not even going to touch that.
I said we though.
Well, there is one good thing about the about metastasizing and being right again. The early voting numbers are continuing to soar through the roof. It almost seems like every single day of early voting is breaking records across the board.
And I do just want to make this statement because I've heard this multiple times. We are not running out of ballots. We're not
What?
Look, I'm see, that was my reaction. That was my reaction. Look,
What?
look, I kid you not. Me and Buck got some friends, okay, and a couple of the friends that Buck and I share kind of messaged me and said, "Hey, we're worried that we're going to run out of ballots." And we're and I said, it's on paper. We don't run out of paper. I don't know. I don't we recycle the cards and then they print it out. And like your reaction was just, I'm telling you.
I love them.
Some of these are getting too good to be true, okay? But yeah, look, y'all. There's no physical there's no physical way that we can run out of balance. I don't mean to laugh at some people's fears, and the worry was that we were going to run out of ballots and would, it could hurt, a special Senate race because they were just concerned, but the reality is that that's not a situation that we have to worry about. Even if it was on special paper, I'm pretty sure that the Secretary of State's office can get it to us fairly quickly, if need be, and it not alter or anything of that nature. But, I think we're in great shape. Early voting numbers are through the roof, and that is just another amazing tout to the bill that our Georgia Assembly passed to make sure that it's harder to cheat and easier to vote here in the state of Georgia.
Yeah, the running average right now for the first 5 days of early voting is 146,000 votes across the state per day.
It's beautiful.
Mm-hmm. I think the 5-day total was between 700 and 800,000 votes.
Beautiful.
Yeah, we are on par. Well, we've already crushed our midterm early voting number, and election day is going to be even larger than it's ever been. I mean, just based statistically, it's going to be. Yeah, it's not the voter suppression and the Jim Crow 2.0 that we had been told about for months coming into this deal.
And once again, Stacey's telling another lie, is telling more lies and continuing to show how out of touch the Democratic Party is and how they are really just trying to control the mindsets of the people who vote for them.
Good old Spacey Stacey.
Spacey Stacey. That's funny. That's hilarious.
It's going to be the new hashtag. Spacey Stacey.
Spacey Stacey. That's wild. That's wild.
You like that one?
I like that one. I like it a lot. I'm so glad I waited to tell you this until we got on the show because I waited all week because I was like, Jessica love this. I said, what? Yeah, man, we're out of ballots.
I mean, that was a big concern. I can see that being a very devastating concern, but no,
it's not possible.
No,
and that's why I want to make sure that our listeners who are listening to this know that that's not how the process works. we are glad to see the record turnout in the state for when it comes to early voting. And again, we will always express legitimate concerns here. And that's why I wanted to make sure that, you saw the reaction from both of us, because out of all the things that we hear, that is something that I don't think anyone should be worried about.
Yeah. And there are some that we will address after November 8th, but right now, you just know that your vote is secure. It will count, and we will beat the Democrat ticket.
Absolutely.
Especially because you will turn out.
And we're going to flood the polls and continue to flood the polls.
Because if we don't, it's your fault.
Yep.
So with that, we'd like to take a moment to remind all of our viewers and listeners to make sure they're hitting the like button and the share button on any of the content that we produce. And make sure you're also hitting the subscribe button. That way you'll never miss a single moment of any of our content. And you'll always be able to see Jamie's lovely smiling face and that incredible laughter that you just had a prime example of. Also by going to our website at conservativestalk.org and hitting that sponsor tab and helping us out, because it is because of our sponsors that we are able to continue these productions and spread our message. So Jamie and I can in one of these days coming soon, we'll be able to take over the world. And that is the ultimate goal. Jamie smiles because he knows.
There's something I want to say, but I can't say it on camera.
That's a first. So let's jump into what Buck had to say. And he kind of told me this in confidence, but I thought it was a good one that we should run with, and that he thinks that what Jamie said last week actually has some merit to it and could potentially be true.
Yeah. See?
I mean, I'll give you that one. That one's so if you're not aware of what we're talking about, last week Jamie, at the closing of the show, in his final thought, gave us a prophecy to where, because of the mutation or because of the gain of function research that had been going on at the Boston Medical College there, or the Boston University infectious disease laboratories there, and that they had created a new form of COVID that was 80% more infectious than the previous strains, but yet still was as impactful as what the original strain had. That they had been playing gods like they did in Jurassic Park and could lead to the zombie apocalypse.
Yep.
So we ran across a report that came out of the AJC this week. And the AJC is reporting that the coronavirus that causes COVID is having an exponential amount of mutations that are currently going on. And it begs to wonder how many of these mutations have been man-made.
Not just man-made neither. How many times do they continue to manipulate them and they keep getting out?
Mm-hmm. No, I mean, that is, yeah.
You know what I mean? Because like they man-made one and then it manipulates, create two different types of variants once it goes inside of new host bodies. And then now we have all these different strands of it out there. And then once they meet a host that has had some antibodies from one and some antibodies from another, strand of the virus, then it takes into it and makes its own variant. Like, I'm telling you, like, I've seen this before in my head, and this is not okay.
Well, so genetically, and speaking about this from a scientific standpoint, this is something that I have dabbled in a little bit in school.
All physical
that
science.
Is something that can be genetically encoded to where once it encounters something that is a wall of resistant, and I mean, this is in a sense evolution 101.
Yeah.
When it hits something, a wall that is become resistant, it will change. And those that it get past that wall and that past that barrier are the ones that become the dominant form of it. So all of these immunizations or these vaccines that go on, that's the reason why you can never be fully vaccinated against such an aggressive sort of virus that the coronavirus strand that was created is, because it was genetically manipulated to a point to where it became as aggressive as it was. That was because it would have a higher infection rate. That way they could study it more. That way they could get more results from it. It was because of that gain of function research, which we defined in our last episode. It was because of that gain of function that we are seeing all of these massive amounts of variants coming out, because not only are these running into some of the immunizations that would come with the injection of some of the vaccines, but also with natural immunity. You're seeing a virus that is overcoming these, and then the ones that are overcoming it are becoming the dominant spreading ones.
Yep.
And it's a kind of I guess a good example is between the squirrel and the rattlesnake. Rattlesnake has the venom that kills a squirrel. Squirrel develops antibodies that fight off the venom. Well, then the rattlesnake has a different sort of venom that becomes a killer towards the antibodies. The squirrel again becomes resistant to that. Then the rattlesnake it's an arms race. It's a competing arms race between the virus and our immune system.
Yep.
That's what we've come down to now because of China.
That makes perfect sense. And after you explaining that, it makes me really realize like what's going on here, which is why they had, Delta, Omicron, Pi, all the different versions.
Sig up.
Yeah. You know what I'm saying? All the different versions of
Alpha, Omicron, Pi.
You see what I did there?
Pi Kappa Alpha, Pi Kappa Phi, Pi Kappa Phi.
All the different versions that they use to take us Greek
ROG,
letters.
All of it.
And make a different version of
Romeo, Lima, Gamma.
Yeah. Different versions of Corona.
You like what I did, didn't you?
Justin just took all my societies and sister societies and put it together.
A deadly virus. Which, for those of you who don't know, I am a Pike myself. I am a fraternity brother. So
yeah, and I'm a Kappa Sigma, and we have a lot of friends who are who are part of the Alpha Omicron Pi.
Although I think the last one was the most infectious one. So the Romeo Lima Gammas.
Let me explain something, Justin.
Well, don't give it away.
Look, all I'm saying is, Justin, you're going to enjoy it when it's your turn to be a part of it.
No, I can, as I've told you before, if you are going to offer me membership or an opportunity to join this, my answer is now and for will ever be no.
He doesn't know what he's missing.
No.
It's one of the greatest organizations alive.
No. I have standards.
Yeah, we do too.
Obviously not. But anyway, so there's a lot to that. Simply because we know that this virus was man-made. I mean, although social media companies across the world try to suppress it, try to push it down, try to keep it from really getting out there, that it was developed in a lab in China and released. It's funny to note, and I was reading through this article in the AJC, that they really emphasized the wet market aspect of it, not that it was created in a lab, which in all honesty doesn't surprise me any, but still, they're still trying to push that narrative.
They wanted to highlight that these are coming across organically, that the virus is being spread versus the origins of it coming from Wuhan and the Center of Disease Control in Wuhan.
Which I think so something that just jumped to my mind. I think that story that came out last week about the Boston University deal, I think that was done because of almost kind of an explanatory deal of how the coronavirus that became COVID-19 was done and how it was created. Because they had all these scientific procedures in place, how they had all of these safety checks, how the community was okay with it, how it wasn't supposed to be deadly. It was supposed to be more deadly than the original one. but yet they took it and made it more infectious. They made it more aggressive. They made it to where it killed more of its host because of how aggressive and infectious it was, which is what was done with the gain of function research in Wuhan. That's how viruses come to be studied. They are manipulated to the where it becomes more infectious, to where it becomes more aggressive. That's the whole mindset behind virology. You want to create as aggressive a strain of a virus that still has a relatively low kill rate in order to be able to study the effects of it and develop vaccines that are effective.
And can kill lesser strands of it
Yes.
along the lines. And, I think it was very interesting to note that they're still trying to, I saw this come out the other day, was one of the concerns is that with COVID-19, that strain, they are now continue to study, and they're saying that they're seeing that it is aging the organs of certain people. Now, what variant that is, or how we actually got there, or how, like, what I mean? That tells a lot too, because we all know like the low kill rate of the first strand, but everyone's going to refer to it as that, as the original by name, not knowing which strand it is. So we can see that, potentially there was a version of it that has been manipulated, that has not just become more aggressive, but has aged the organs of those that it infects. And then depending on, what their pre-medical history was as to why that occurred in them versus someone else, all that goes back to, what manipulation was done to the virus to try to get it to be more aggressive.
And you can manipulate the virus genetically. You can manipulate a virus genetically to target specific things.
Correct.
That are a part of a host genetic makeup. That is something that is, that's elementary in virology.
Yeah, which is why small circles of conspiracy theorists that I was talking to, we all thought that
is that the same one, the ballots?
Yeah. I go to dark places sometimes.
We all do. It's okay.
Was that the virus was manipulated to target a certain blood type, because you were starting to see that some people had it more aggressively than others. And we were wondering at first if this was a targeted to based upon a certain type of blood. That way you could see the effects of how it spread a lot more easily, and then they could manipulate the virus from there once you had a control group of using a certain type of blood type.
Yeah, and that is something that is well within the realm. It's not just blood type, but ethnicity as well.
Yep, because all that plays a role into it. Because you can target certain things, like looking at how pigmentation comes out through people, or look at different strands inside of the genocode, and then using those different types of things as smaller elements. Whereas, you can add in that blood type and truly have it reach, because then the blood type also does additional damage once you add in how you target the genocode.
Yep, that is true.
Scary world we live in.
Absolutely. So we do want to issue a public service announcement, in that you might want to go ahead and stock up on toilet paper again.
Yeah. Grab the bread, the cheese, the eggs,
the milk. Well, the milk may go bad before too long.
Yeah, that's true. Go down to Justin's homeland in Cave Spring and grab some of that creek water. It lasts good 5 years. I know that from experience, before you have to pour it out when nothing happens.
That is pretty good. That's some very fresh agua there.
Hey, I'm telling you, in Y2K, we barreled like 20 gallons of it because we just knew the world was in it. And then in 2006, we dumped it all because it was.
You're not the only one. But with that, we like to make sure that we remind all of our viewers to make sure they're hitting the like button and the share button on all of our productions. That way you can help Jamie and I to get higher organically in the news feed. And make sure you're also hitting subscribe. That way you'll always stay up to date with everything that Jamie and I do. And you'll always be able to see a smiling face, and you'll never miss a single moment of that infectious laughter. Also, make sure you're going to our website, and that is conservativetalk.org, and hitting the sponsor tab in the upper right hand corner or the lower right hand corner, and helping us out with what you're able to, because it is because of our sponsors that we are able to really continue with these productions and make sure that Jamie and I will eventually, one of these days soon, be able to rise to the ultimate dictators and take over the world.
I'm not going to be a dictator, but I will be ruler.
I'll be a dictator.
We're going to divide the world into two.
We also want to say a quick thank you to our affiliates, and that's Net News Network. You can find Net News Network at netnewsnetwork.net. We want to say thank you to Veterans for America First, the political grassroots organization fighting to make sure that America stays the greatest nation in the world. And we also want to say thank you to their media wing, and that is Vet Voice, or Veterans Voice. Veterans Voice is content producer that only features providers that really promote the America First value to make sure that America remains the greatest country in the world. And with that in mind, Jamie, would you like to close this out with your favorite part?
Yes. Boom. 12 days until we cancel Stacey Abrams and the rest of the Democratic ticket. Beautiful.
Really is.
Beautiful. Just, do you have any final thoughts?
None that I can say on camera. So
I feel you.
Mine. Jamie says he goes to dark places every once in a while. I live in the dark places.
This is like, I am the hole.
I created the rabbit hole.
I just want to reiterate that, the only way we can truly cancel Stacey and the Democratic ticket is making sure that you all get out and vote, whether it be early voting or voting on election day. I will be voting on election day because I love going to my precinct, but either one is very important, highly important. We have to flood the polls. And I just want to say thank you to everyone who's already been out there to vote so far.
Yes. Like we say quite frequently on this show, if you don't vote, what comes next is your fault.
Yeah.
And don't be mad about it.
Yep.
Because if you get mad because you didn't vote, it was your fault. You're the reason why.
Can't sit on the sidelines.
Yes,
we got to get out there and get after it.
You are getting out there and voting, and make sure you are making your voice heard.
And this is serious in the fact that everyone's always talked about, Republicans are taking back the House, right? That's almost like guaranteeing Democrats accepted it. But right now, across the country, we have a real shot at taking back both chambers of Congress. And this now's the time. If you ever wanted to stand up and say, you know what, like, my values matter, now's the time to get out there and show the American people that we have gone too far with some of these Democratic policies.
The only way to get a Republican in the White House for 23 and 24 is to take back both chambers with an absolute majority, impeach both Biden and Kamala, then the speaker.
Yep.
We'll have control of the speakership. Speaker's next in line. That's the only way to get a Republican back in. So if you are not voting, then you are standing against a Republican getting back in office. Yep.
That's it.
That's a little food for thought on that one. But as always, this is Republicans. Jamie's influencing me. Jamie is influencing me. Hey, I hate it.
It won't be long.
No.
As you can tell. You want me to say it?
No, I don't. This is Conservatives Talk, and we will see y'all